Finally, we are into the last grant type that we have in OAuth2 flow, which is refresh token grant type. Let me clear you in what scenarios we use this grant type inside OAuth2 framework. Think of a scenario where you used any of the grant type that we discussed previously, like either implicit grant type or authorization code grant type. You got an access token from the authorization server and you send that to the resource server and got the required resources that you want from the resource server belongs to a resource owner. So everything is happy, everyone is happy in this scenario. Now suddenly your token expires, because obviously, right, auth servers will not issue a token without any expiration time. The reason is, if you have a token without any expiration time, it is as good as credentials of the user. Anyone have the token, they can use it for any number of time, which is again a serious security issue. Due to that reason, every auth server, like, they can define the time frame based upon their organization requirements. Usually it will be like 1 day or 60 minutes based upon the requirement from application to application. So due to that reason, there are good chances that your token may expire. The access token may expire. So if access token expires, we should not ask the user or the resource owner again, your access token is expired, I want you to again authorize me at the Google Auth server. To avoid that and to provide a better user experience to the user, not asking credentials again and again every 60 minutes or every 1 day, we have a concept called refresh token also in OAuth2. So whenever we interact with the auth server initially during the authorization code grant type or implicit grant type, along with the access token, you also get the refresh token from the auth server. You stays that refresh token and access token in the database, and whenever you get an error from the auth server saying that your access token is expired, instead of you asking the resource owner or user to enter the credentials again, what you will be doing is you will be sending the refresh token to the authorization server with a grant type as refresh, indicating that my original access token which you shared is expired and now I want to get a new access token. So in such scenarios, authorization server will validate the refresh token that it originally issued. If the refresh token is valid and if it belongs to the same user it initially issued, now the authorization server will issue again a new access token with a new expiration time along with the new refresh token. Please do remember, we'll also get a new refresh token. We can't use the same refresh token again and again. That's the purpose of the refresh token, as the name indicates. So in such scenarios, we use the refresh token grant type. Like you can see here, there is no user involved or resource owner involved because my client don't want to ask the user for his credentials in the Gmail application. Instead, it can rely on the refresh token which is originally issued from the Google Auth server. So in the initial scenario where we are using Stack Overflow, think of a scenario. Today I went to Stack Overflow and signed up using my Gmail credentials. Now Stack Overflow has a refresh token and access token. Maybe after 3-4 days, I again went to the Stack Overflow. But now this time, Stack Overflow will not ask me to enter my credentials again. Instead, what it will do is, if my access token is expired, based upon the response from the resource server, as you can see in the very first step, the Stack Overflow directly make a call to the resource server because it is holding the access token which it received from day one. Now resource server, after validating with the auth server, it says it is expired buddy, I'm sorry, I'm throwing a 403 error. Now client realizes the token is expired. It will make a separate request to the auth server like in step 3 along with the refresh token that it received initially. If the refresh token is valid, now auth server will issue a new access token and refresh token. Based upon the new access token, it will call the resource server to get the protected resource. If the access token is valid, my resource server will provide the resources requested by the client. And client also will save the new refresh token in some database table for future, because without refresh token, it can't request again for a new access token. Instead, it should force the user or resource owner to enter the credentials again in the OAuth2 flow. So for such instances, we use the refresh token grant type, and refresh token grant type will never happen during the initial login. Suppose if I'm an user or resource owner going to the Stack Overflow very first time, I can never use the refresh token directly, because in order to use the refresh token grant type, I should have at least logged in or signed up successfully at least once before. Then only my client will hold a refresh token and it leverages it to get the access token whenever it expires. As we discussed in step 3, when client is making a request to the auth server endpoint, in order to get a new access token, it has to send the client ID and client secret, and next is the refresh token, which it originally received from the initial authentication and authorization, and third one is the scope, and fourth one is the important one, which is a grant type with the value refresh token. This indicates the auth server that the client is sending a refresh token and it wants a new access token for the user. As we discussed, this flow will be used only in the scenarios where the access token is expired. Instead of asking the user again and again to log in, we can leverage the refresh token to get the new access token. We should never make our access tokens without any expiration time, because it creates a lot of security issues. Regularly, you have to get the access tokens from the auth servers based upon the refresh tokens. Even in the scenarios where we follow resource owner credentials grant type, where all the client, authorization server, resource server, everyone staying in the same organization, even in that scenario also, for re-authentication and reauthorization purpose, we should never store the resource owner credentials. Instead, we should leverage the refresh tokens in order to get the new access token every time. So with this, we are done with a long discussion of all the grant types involved inside OAUTH2 flow. In the next lecture, let's try to understand how resource server will connect to authorization server whenever it receives an access token to validate whether that access token is a valid one or not. Thank you and see you in the next video. Bye.